Congresswoman Malliotakis from New York to discuss how New Yorkers are feeling about the Biden border crisis.
Before we go to Nicole, I just want to invite, if there are other members, I have an open seat right here if Congresswoman Boebert wants to join us as members come and go. Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol, for your work in highlighting how fentanyl is destroying communities. You know, I woke up this morning and got on the phone with the director of ICE for New York because in my city, we saw 2 police officers beat by a mob of migrants in Times Square. And I told the ICE director quite clearly, like, I want these individuals to be deported, period. We cannot accept in this country people who have paid the cartels thousands of dollars to be smuggled here, and then they're in our city committing crimes. And why are they in New York? Well, because our mayor decided to provide housing, education, legal services, laundry services, food, you name it. And so it's incentivizing more people to come to New York City. But you're seeing that not all of them are innocent asylum seekers, as our mayor claims. I can go through a bunch of articles here, which we don't have time for, but another woman was arrested for slapping NYPD officer in the face. Okay, another illegal immigrant bites off a police sergeant's finger after a DUI bust. Asylum seeker accused of killing another at the Randall's Island shelter, which we, the taxpayers in New York City, are paying for. Migrant stabbed by girlfriend in a possible love triangle. Okay, this is what's happening in New York, and it's happening all too often, and we need to do something about it. And the president could end this today if he simply undoes his executive orders that created this mess, and if my mayor stops misinterpreting New York City's right to shelter law, which is intended only for New Yorkers. And what's really unfair is, look, we're New York City. We are a nation, a city of immigrants. We're welcoming. And I have many immigrants in my district, my parents included. I met last week with a woman from Belarus who's been here since 2017, a clear asylum case because she was politically persecuted in her country. She's been here, she's been legal, she's been working, she's been doing everything right, waiting patiently. And her court case is getting pushed to the back of the line. Why? Because the president has a last in, first in approach where the people who are coming over the border, paying the drug smugglers thousands of dollars, they're getting first priority and their hearings are being heard first. And that was what immigration told me directly when I inquired as to why this person's was delayed so long. So it's not fair to the people who've come the right way and have been waiting patiently, doing everything right, and that has to be addressed. Enriching the cartels, that's what's happening. I just said $32 million a week. But what really concerns me, and maybe Brandon can help shed some light on this issue, is, look, I'm from New York City, right? Post 9/11 world. Look at the board. 361 people on the terror watch list were stopped at the southern border alone. You mentioned there's not enough people on the northern border. We didn't even know how many maybe came into the northern border. But in addition to the roughly 8 million people who are claiming asylum, which, by the way, only half of them actually qualify, maybe less, because if you look at the court data, more than half of the people claiming asylum are doing it to gain entry, and then they are denied when they actually get to court. Further pushing my constituent who came the right way down the line, clogging up the immigration system. But in addition to those people, you're talking about 1.8 million that have come in or undetected. That's what CBP estimates. We don't know who they are, where they are, or what their intention is. And that is what scares me the most as a New Yorker in a post 9/11 world. Can you please give us your thoughts on that? And is there reason to be concerned?
Yeah, so the actual estimate is going to be that there's been more than close to 4 million people that have crossed our borders illegally and have been able to evade apprehension. That 1.8 million people, that's what we actually detected. So that's not an estimate. We actually know that that's what crossed the border. We saw them. So when you look at this issue and when you look at this problem, you're constantly going to hear in the rhetoric rather than giving actual facts. And what really frustrates and upsets us is when you hear Joe Biden say, well, I've asked for money. This is not a money issue. This strictly is a policy issue. If he were to give us the policy, what he wants to do is he wants to put the cart before the horse. If you give me more drones, if you give me more ground sensors, if you give me more remote video surveillance, all that's going to do is count the gotaways. That's all it's going to do. It does not allow us to go out and actually apprehend these individuals, because the cartels recognize that all they have to do is flood our resources, and when they flood our resources in one specific area, it requires us to send those resources to that area, which takes our agents out of the field. And when our agents are out of the field, it creates the gaps in our coverage. And when they create that gaps, they control that area, and we just don't know what's coming across. You're going to hear this misnomer, and you're going to hear the far left liberals, and they're going to say, well, all the drugs are coming at the ports of entry. They're not coming between the ports of entry, and that is absolutely false. And the reason that that's false is because those ports of entry, those are secure locations. If the resources exist, every single vehicle can be gone through. But when you don't have agents on the border, and when you can't properly patrol the border, when you have 23 miles that are wide open, everything that comes across there, it would behoove the cartels to actually cross their drugs at that time when they create that opportunity. And that's what they're doing. They're creating an opportunity. On the northern border, they create that opportunity knowing that they flood our resources on the southwest border, which then requires our northern border agents to sit behind a computer and process individuals, and which again destabilizes the northern border and allows drugs to flow across there. In fact, the most potent marijuana used to be what we call BC bud, and that was coming from Canada. We know that things continue to come from Canada in your area. We know that that continues to happen, but if you're not there to actually apprehend them, again, give me drones, great, but those drones are going to count the gotaways. They're not going to allow us to apprehend people.
If I could just add one point, because I think it's important to this discussion. We've caught a number of drug smugglers in New York, and believe it or not, because of New York's ridiculous bail law, they've been released right back onto the streets. And one of the things that ICE is concerned about is that NYPD has their hands tied and they cannot cooperate with ICE. So ICE may have a detainer request for those individuals, and NYPD will just release them back onto the street instead of turning them over to ICE. And that has made it really even more problematic for law enforcement to be able to do their job.
And that's a policy decision, and that's the problem. And that's one of the magnets that draws people to cross our borders illegally. When they recognize that there's going to be no consequences once they get here. And again, I don't mean to correct anybody, but statistics will show that people that claim asylum, it's only about 15% that are granted. So the vast majority of these individuals that claim asylum don't have a legitimate claim, but the problem is the vast majority never show up to their court appearances. So when we're looking at the impeachment of Secretary Malliotakis, if we want to prove, because we constantly hear, well, you didn't prove your case. If we want to prove that he is actually violating our laws by not enforcing our laws, all you have to do is look at what he said. He said the act of being in this country alone is not enough for an enforcement action. That's his intent. His intent clearly shows that he is not going to enforce the laws. Then he backs it up with action. All you have to do is look at the people that do not show up to their court appearances. That means they violated the rules of their release, and he now has an obligation to go after those individuals, but he's not. And that's where he's violating the law. So, and when he violates the law, what that does is it invites more people to cross our borders illegally. That's the magnet that draws people here. So it is clear that he is in fact violating the law, and if we do not impeach him, then we are allowing him to get away with encouraging the cartels to continue to advertise their services around the world. There must be accountability in our government.
We're next going to go to